Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the teams that just have to be active over the next month. Get a lot of guys in the portal. Make sure you backfill those positions because 2025 is going to be huge for a lot of these coaches, for a lot of these teams to prove that they can make it to the CFP in some way or another. But let's get to my quarterback rankings. We got the CFP rolling up. I want to make sure I get to essentially all my rankings. We'll probably do the coaches tomorrow if I had to be honest. So a lot of different things coming over the next little bit, but let's get into this. And this is a tough list to put together. I'll be totally honest. I love a lot of the guys on this list. They bring so many different skill sets to the table, and there's really not that dominant force in this group. There's not the Cam Ward. There's not the Shadur Sanders. There's not the guy that is outright number one and no question about it. So a lot of different things to kind of go into here, and number 12 was probably the easiest of the bunch. No disrespect to Maddox Madsen, he is definitely the worst quarterback in this thing. Very capable, very talented player, especially with him expanding the run game throughout the year. He is someone that can make a lot of plays. The pass game, he's just not really a game changer. He can do the job, he can execute the offense, but if Ashton Genty is held under check, I don't think Maddox Madsen's going to go out there and win you a game. So a quarterback that can definitely do the job, that can play within his offense, can play relatively good football within his offense, but when it really comes down to it, I don't think he's going to outright win you a game. And kind of the way that I'm looking at this, just so everyone understands, it's who do I trust the most to outright lead my team in 4 straight games, to win a national title, to beat a lot of the elite teams that you're going to have to beat in the playoff? Who is the quarterback that in a vacuum I would take no matter what? Maddox Madsen would probably be the last one on this list, and then Gunnar Stockton would be 11, and this is all about experience to me. When you talk about the talent, it is off the charts. That is very, very clear. He is someone that I tend to believe is going to be fine. I may have picked Georgia to win the national title, so I think he's going to be more than fine. But there is going to be tons of adversity that he has not faced. There's going to be a ton of things that he has not looked at, and there's going to be a ton of things that are going to create problems for him. He's a very talented quarterback, and I think he will be more than fine in this tournament. But when I'm looking at these quarterbacks side by side, I can't necessarily lean into the guy that's going to be making his first start against Notre Dame here, or against Indiana or Notre Dame. Apologies to Hoosiers fans, to Indiana or Notre Dame here in a little bit. I just can't fully feel confident in that. I do think he's a very talented player and will be fine, but still a relative question mark here. This is the one that hurt me, because I really want Sam Leavitt to be higher on this list. I think I probably could slide him up a couple of spots if I'm being totally honest, but he's a special player. He has that moniker of a gamer as far as I'm concerned. He is the guy that if you need 8 yards, he's going to find a way to get you 8 yards, even if his arm falls off in the process. He's a very, very talented player. To me, the only difference here is experience. He's not necessarily been in these moments. He's not necessarily played at this level, and it's definitely going to be a big time adjustment. If Cam Skattebo is totally stonewalled in one of these games, let's say they play Texas, and Cam Skattebo goes for 40 yards rushing on 20 carries. Is Sam Leavitt going to be able to pick up the slack? Is my only question there. Very talented player. I could very well see him becoming one of the darlings of this thing and be in my top 5 rankings when we redo this thing at the end. But very talented player. I'm a little bit worried about the experience gap between him and some of the other players in this thing. Curtis Rourke here at 9. This is one of the more efficient passers in the entire country all year. Definitely a guy that not necessarily going to extend a ton of plays for you, make a couple of plays with his legs, but his ability to execute an offense is about as good as anyone in this group. He definitely can put the ball wherever you need it to be. He's a very, very efficient passer, very confident passer, and I think he's one of those guys that will just keep you in front of the chains. He won't make a ton of mistakes. He will dump the ball off when he needs to. That's absolutely huge. In games like this where you just need to take what's in front of you, need to take what the defense gives you, he is very, very good at that. I tend to believe he is a guy that absolutely can lead a team that might have to be a little bit more talented than Indiana is, but at the end of the day, can definitely lead a team to glory. Very talented player, and definitely just that experienced, steady hand that I would like at the wheel. Riley Leonard, kind of cut from the same cloth. He can make all the plays in the world. There's no doubt about that. I am worried about his ability to make that one huge throw that he is going to have to make at some point next Friday. I can almost promise you he's going to have to make a play throughout that game with his arm. He's very experienced. He's very smart. Can he rise to the moment when it's needed if that run game is shut down? Does he have the ability to take over a game with his arm and make all the plays that's necessary? I'd be a little bit surprised if I'm being totally honest. I really like Riley Leonard, but when I look at this offense, it's if you can run the ball, all well and good. If you can't, it could fall apart pretty quickly. Nico Iamaleava here at 7. I think he's probably the most talented quarterback in this entire thing. From a pure talent perspective, he's an absolute beast. He can do everything you possibly want him to do. He can absolutely extend plays with his legs. Kind of an underrated part of his game, honestly. Very, very talented player, and definitely a guy that can make defenses think about that part of his game. but the arm is where the money is made, no doubt about that. And when I look at this guy throw the football, it's one of those things where I don't care if it's 3rd and 15, I don't care if it's 3rd and 18. He can throw an absolute missile on the dime, on a dig, on a slant, on a post, whatever you need. He can put the ball where it needs to be. Now, he has been a little bit inefficient when it comes to throwing the ball downfield, and that's definitely a worry for me. But when you're talking about just executing a 2-minute drill and having to put the ball where it needs to be on out routes, on slants, on digs, on all of those different things, this is the guy that can absolutely do it. He has the highest ceiling of anyone in this thing. If he steps up and makes the plays downfield, this is a team that can win a national title with him at the helm. I can absolutely promise you that. The talent is ridiculous. He's just got to put it all together at the right moment. Will Howard here at 6. This is the wild card to me as far as I'm concerned. There is some questions about his ability to step up to the moment to make the big plays down the stretch of a game because he struggled with that throughout this year. He made a couple of big-time plays against Penn State, also made a couple of big-time mistakes. So this is kind of the wild card, could go either direction. But when I look at this kid, he has so much experience. He feels like his mentality is exactly the way that you need it to be as you head into a tournament like this. I think he's a very confident guy, and I think he's someone that is just going to give you what you need. I think he's going to play very, very tough. I think that run game is going to be hugely important for Ohio State, and he's just that hard-nosed guy that I don't think is going to be denied in a lot of big-time moments here. I really like him. I understand there's some worries around him, no doubt about that, but when I look at this tournament, when I look at what you need, a lot of it is just about having a clear head. This guy has that. There's no doubt about that. Cannot wait to see what he can do in this tournament, and he very well could be the guy lifting the trophy at the end of this thing. Kevin Jennings is the most dynamic playmaker in this entire tournament at quarterback. He is absolutely incredible with his legs. He can do just about everything you need him to do, can make all types of throws, and when I talk about a guy that I think can lead me to 4 straight wins against elite opponents, if he has the guys around him, he can do just about anything you need him to do. He is so dynamic, he is so different, and he's one of those guys that you need to dance around and make a play on 3rd and 10. There's no one I'm picking before this kid. He is absolutely incredible to watch and definitely one of those guys that is a little bit of a wild card, definitely can make some mistakes here and there, but when I look at his entire season, he has only gotten better. The arm has only gotten more confident and more talented, and then the athletic ability is just different in every sense of the word. I would have Quinn Ewers here at 4. The criticism that Quinn Ewers has gotten a lot of times is very fair. To be totally honest, the other side of that, he is one of the most experienced, talented throwers of the football in the entire tournament. The dude can put the ball pretty much wherever you need it to be put. Down the field, it's a little bit of a worry, but when you have those digs, when you have those slants, when you have those out routes, that ball is coming out before the guy's broken. It's going to be on his chest, and it's going to be really, really accurate 9 times out of 10. Very, very talented quarterback. The mobility is definitely a concern for me, but if I'm in a 2-minute situation and I just need a guy to make anticipation throws, stay on schedule, be on target the majority of the time, I'm leaning toward Quinn Ewers. Very, very talented quarterback. The running is not going to be a factor for him necessarily. There's plenty that he can do with his arm in those big-time moments to make plays. Cade Klubnik, I would have here at 3, and this is one that some might question. The ability with this kid is absolutely ridiculous. He can do just about everything you need him to do on the football field, and I think he has some of those qualities that can just make him thrive in a single elimination type format that we have, and he did it in high school. He won multiple state championships, was a remarkable player in those games. He has a little bit of experience in this type of format. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do, and his legs are going to be a real factor. It was a huge factor for Clemson this year, especially if they don't have Phil Maffa against Texas. It's going to have to be a big factor, and when I look at this guy, he can make the deep ball passes, he can make all the passes in the world, and he has a little bit of ability to scoot. I really like Cade Klubnik. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in this thing, and I think he's one that kind of create a little bit of a wild card and take the world by storm as we head into this thing. Drew Aller, this was very close between the number 1 and 2, but I have Drew Aller here. He might have the best ability of any quarterback in the CFP. He's absolutely remarkable. There's not a thing he cannot do with the football in terms of passing, and then he really can scoot. It's not necessarily the biggest part of his game, but he absolutely can run the ball. He absolutely can get out and make some plays with his legs when they're needed, but the reality is he can fit the ball into any window you want. He has probably the strongest arm of anyone in this thing, and when I look at this kid, he just gets better and better as you watch him play. I'm really excited to see what he can do. He is someone that can take over a game. I really do think he has that in him. It'll be awesome to see if he has to do that and if he's able to do that when he does. So he's my number 2. Dillon Gabriel's my number one. We talked about all this different stuff throughout this. We talked about poise. We talked about how important that's going to be, being experienced. We talked about having your legs, being able to run the ball. We talked about being pinpoint accurate when you need to, and we talked about going through your progressions and being very smart with the football. He does all of those things. He's very, very good within the system, to be totally fair, but regardless, he is very good at getting the ball out of his hands very quickly, putting it on target. He's also can extend plays with his legs. He can make plays that way. He absolutely is someone that keeps the ball out of harm's way. He does everything that you could possibly want a guy to do in a single elimination tournament against some of the elite teams in the country. It's just about avoiding mistakes. It's just about making the play in front of you. It's just about doing the thing that makes the most sense at that very moment. Sometimes it's pulling the ball down and running. Sometimes it's just taking that little dump off to the running back. Sometimes it is ripping it deep and throwing that deep ball. And he, although not necessarily elite throwing that deep ball, absolutely has the ability to make those plays, absolutely can advance the ball down the field. And when I look at all of these quarterbacks, there's so many different things that all of these guys have. There's so many different variations of what they can do on the football field. Dillon Gabriel seems to have about all of them. He's very, very talented with his legs and his arm. He makes all the plays in the world, keeps the ball out of harm's way, and has that steady nature that you absolutely have to have in the playoffs. So ranking these quarterbacks was really tough. I love all of these guys. Sam Levitt, as I'm looking at it right now, I'd love to bump him up to 8, maybe even 7. Very talented kid. I think a gamer-type player that could really thrive in this type of format. But I feel pretty good about the list that I have. I think Dillon Gabriel setting the pace, and then everyone else is pretty close behind him as far as I'm concerned. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. We have great people covering every sport you could possibly want. So in the world of sports, come on over to GSMC and we have you totally covered. But thank you once again for listening. I will be back tomorrow to break down who exactly I think can actually win the national title from the CFP teams, my Navy-Army breakdown, a lot of different things happening on tomorrow's show, so I will see you then.